20.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. We're on episode 29. We have Frank who's holding up the sign, and we've got Jake who's...
I don't know where the sign is.
Yeah, Jake's doing something. How are you guys?
It'd be top right from you. Oh, wait, no, it'd actually be directly to the right from you.
Alright, well, it's a good intro for us. Episode 29, we are about a month away from NFL free agency. But we do have some news and notes that we got to cover first. First, it'd be weird if we didn't start off with the Deshaun Watson news, which has kind of been taking over free agency and NFL, and, it's even gone broader than that. We're not all lawyers. We're not really qualified to talk on the subject. We're not going to speculate if he's innocent or guilty. But what's going on is Deshaun Watson has, I think the number is now up to 16 lawsuits, I believe, with over 20-something allegations. Just very high numbers of allegations of women claiming sexual harassment and even worse stuff against Deshaun Watson. We're not going to pretend like we know if he's innocent or guilty, but we are going to address the fact that he's on basically everyone's dynasty team, and he's considered, as of right now, a top 10 dynasty asset, probably top 5 quarterback in Superflex leagues, maybe a little bit on the outside, but I think most people would say top 5. Guys, what are we doing as Deshaun Watson owners? What are we doing? Or if you're looking to buy Deshaun Watson, are you doing anything?
I'm out. I want no part of it. It's just too much of a bad situation for me. Like you said, I don't know what the actual deal is, but between the fact that he may not play just because he might still be on the Texans for the Texans refusing to trade him, and now this, I just think the whole Deshaun Watson thing is just so especially as a contender, there's no way you can sit back and just think your team will contend if you don't have Deshaun Watson and he's just out. So from that perspective, I'm selling. I think there will be plenty of teams in your league that are willing to still give you a haul. They'll still say, I'll take the chance even if Deshaun Watson misses a whole year, like it'll be worth it. No, it's not. I'm telling you now, it's not. So if you can get a big package that offsets the risk between Deshaun Watson and the Texans being unhappy and Deshaun Watson and legal issues, I think you should take it, and I think cash out, it's the safe option here.
I would buy. I just don't think that the Deshaun Watson owner would sell low enough that I'm willing to buy at. And I also think that, like Jake said, there's going to be some teams that are going to look at this as an opportunity to buy a really good quarterback. And I don't think I would beat those teams as well. So I guess I more so fall into the Jake category of I'm kind of staying away from the whole situation. I don't own any shares of Deshaun Watson in any of my leagues. But I'm not going to come out here and say that if I can get him for like a singular first, if that's a possibility, which I don't think it ever will be, then I guess I'll buy. But it's I just think that other people would outbid me, or the owner would just say a single first, no way.
Yeah, I agree with that, Frank. Like, the price where it's worth taking the gamble on him is just not what most people would be willing to pay, or what most owners would be willing to sell him for, So in that case, I don't want my hands on it. I don't like having to root for players who I don't think are great people either. Not saying that's exactly the case with Deshaun Watson. We don't know yet, but if it comes out and that's the case and he gets suspended by the NFL for 8 weeks or a year, and then I have him the next year, it still kind of feels wrong to me. But I don't know, that might just be me making a whole moral high ground kind of decision. I bet a lot of other people will feel differently, saying it's fantasy football, it's whatever. We're not here judging if the guy's going to heaven or hell kind of thing. But yeah, it's a very tricky situation. It's something that, as a Dynasty podcast, we can't really avoid, but we kind of want to as much as we can.
Dude,
because it's
16 allegations.
Yeah, no, it's 20.
That is more than the amount of touchdowns Daniel Jones threw for
Oh, that's mean.
last year.
But
Why did you have to do me like that? That's just a low blow. That's just a low blow.
How many career fumbles does he have?
I don't know.
More than that. More than 16.
So, yeah, Jeez, Frank. Yeah.
That's a lot of allegations, dude.
I think it's
scary. You're gonna run up Cam Newton. Cam Newton threw for like 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, but that's not as funny.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? It's something that you gotta monitor, but we want to kind of avoid it as much as possible because it's a very bad situation and not something that we want to touch on as much as we can because who knows what's gonna happen. All right, moving on. We do have some lighter note stuff. We have free agency news and notes, and we were talking about it earlier off the podcast. But Jake, the Giants actually made the big splash. They went out and they signed Kenny Golladay, their alpha wide receiver who we were talking about. What do you think that does to Kenny Golladay stocks? What do you think that does to Daniel Jones? Are you happy? Are you excited as a Giants fan? What do you think?
Well, one, I'm ecstatic as a Giants fan in general. This is exactly what they needed. They needed the alpha dog wide receiver. I think in the last week's episode, I predicted that the Giants would pay up and they would sign Kenny Golladay, and they did it. I'm kind of a little surprised just because I thought Gettleman would be like, oh, we signed John Ross, and that's fine, right? But this is perfect. I think people are going to look at this as a downgrade for Kenny Golladay, coming from Matthew Stafford in Detroit, coming to Daniel Jones. Obviously, I'm not going to say Daniel Jones is Matthew Stafford, but I do think Kenny Galladay's fantasy stock will be fine, and I think it's actually a good time to go buy low on Kenny Golladay because people will think Daniel Jones is not the same as Matthew Stafford, and he won't put up the same numbers with Daniel Jones. So, with that said, on the flip side, I'm also willing to buy Daniel Jones. They signed Kenny Golladay. They have Shepard, who's going to be in the slot. They have Darius Slayton, who's going to be a good deep threat. They still have Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram. And
Kenyan got robbed.
Tunyon really should have been there. It was a horrible, I don't know how that happened. But
it was come on, video. There we go. Bang time.
It was a bad take by the NFL. I don't know who picks the Pro Bowl.
Whoever picks the Pro Bowl is a bad take.
Yeah, but the key here is they get Saquon Barkley back because I think he's the key to this whole offense. This offense revolves around Saquon Barkley. No matter who's playing wide receiver, no matter who's playing quarterback, if they have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, he's going to draw attention from defenses, and that is the key here because that will leave Kenny Golladay probably with a lot of one-on-ones. That'll leave Sterling Shepard with a lot of one-on-ones, and it's just going to make this offense flow a whole lot better than it did last year when you had the likes of Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris running in the backfield here. So I just think this is a great time to buy both Daniel Jones and Kenny Golladay on the lower side of things, and it might be my Giants bias here, but I think the price on both of these guys is going to be what convinces most people to pull the trigger here.
All right. I don't know. For me, I see Daniel Jones as the next Drew Lock in the regards of, look at this guy. We just got him all his weapons. He's going to succeed. And then he just doesn't succeed because he is who he is. So for that, if I had Daniel Jones, I'd be willing to try and just salvage whatever I can with him. Probably people are.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I understand that there's going to be a lot of owners that want to sell Daniel Jones because they don't think that he's going to do anything. And if I could get him for a late second round pick, I'd be absolutely, sure, no problem. I think that's a great buy for a guy that could potentially be, a high-end quarterback too. He does, people forget that Daniel Jones has rushing upside. He is a good runner. We saw it before he, fell on his face against Tampa Bay. He ran 80 yards and had a higher top speed than, I think it was Alvin Kamara or someone like that. He's a good athlete, and people just discredit that because, he does make a lot of bonehead plays and a lot of fumbles and stuff, but like so does Josh Allen. Like obviously Josh Allen has taken a massive step forward, and we haven't seen that progression here from Daniel Jones. But it's not to say that I don't think he can do it, because I think he has the mental capacity, and that's more than half the battle playing quarterback, is being able to do it mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just on the other side where I'd be willing to sell for maybe not a late second, but mid-second I definitely feel okay about.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I don't think anyone is going to sell him for a late second. I think if you're a Daniel Jones owner, you're really hoping for that mid-early kind of second, that 203, 204, somewhere around there.
I mean, I think I'd give probably 206 or 207, and I think that along with maybe a third-round pick or fourth-round pick, whatever you want to throw in there to sweeten the pot a little bit, might get the deal done on a guy that's like you and not very high on Daniel Jones here, even with the addition of Golladay. So
I think Daniel Jones is a decent buy for a contender as a rebuilding team. Even though it's nice value, I'm just not sure I want to buy into him. But I do think that Daniel Jones' stock is going to go up for this season, mainly because I think, like Jake said, the running attack is going to be better, which in turn will help out Daniel Jones. It's something that you saw at the end of last season. Their offensive line play was much improved, and then Daniel Jones improved. So I think that we could see a little bit more of a consistent offense, but long term, I'm not buying Daniel Jones. I'll buy him for the short term, though.
I mean, like you said, the line did improve over the course of the season last year, and I think it will continue to improve. You know, Andrew Thomas stepping into his second year, Shane Lemieux stepping into his second year. Obviously, they cut Zeitler for cap reasons, and I believe he signed a big contract with the Ravens, I think it was. But, you know, Soldier is coming back off an opt-out year. This line should continue to get better. I believe in this team, and I think that the Giants are going to surprise some people overall next year.
All right. Kind of a different surprise, actually, was Juju Smith-Schuster. I butchered that. How Juju? He decided to take what people are saying was a pay cut and re-sign with the Steelers rather than the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think for the other two teams that are offering him big money. Frank, you're the Steelers guy. We've talked about Juju before. I think we were all kind of convinced he was leaving. Up until maybe last week, we started saying, like, oh, maybe it might be better for him to resign. But what are your thoughts on this? Did you expect it? Are you happy? What do you think?
As a Steelers fan, I'm very happy. I really like Juju. Like some other people, I wasn't necessarily happy about all the TikToks and all the noise that was going on, but I'm also not going to crucify him for it and say, hey, Juju, like you saw. I still love Juju as a football player and as the leader of our receiving corps. Like, it doesn't really get much better as a football player than him in terms of a guy that plays hard, blocks well, does everything you need him to do. I think from a fantasy perspective, you know, I think that Claypool and Deontay Johnson owners are probably going to be pretty upset. I can agree to a certain extent. I think that Juju, though, does help the overall production of the offense, which then in turn helps Deontay and Claypool. I think the only problem is that we're going to go back to that Steelers we saw last year where it's almost like a gamble on which one of the guys is going to get the work and the better matchup and then in turn the fantasy points, right? And I think any owner of a Steelers receiver will agree with me here in that it was just a nightmare trying to pick which guy was going to do it which week. The only one that really did it with any consistency was Deontay Johnson, and even Deontay Johnson had his rough weeks here and there. So I think from a fantasy perspective, contenders get hit the most. Long term, I still like the stocks on all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, everything you've just said on this, but I think Juju really just wanted to run it back one last time with Ben. I think he realized, like, this is probably Ben's last year, at least in Pittsburgh, if not his career. So I just think he's like, all right, I'll run it back with Ben one last time. I'll be a free agent next year. It's only a one-year deal. And then if I prove myself, I'll get even more money than I got this year. So I think it's a win-win-win for everyone involved here, except fantasy owners here. They're the ones that are like, man, I really wish I got to see Claypool and Deontay without Juju, just because the target share that he's going to demand here.
Or even just Juju going to the Chiefs, right? Like that would have been the dream scenario. I said it on the 3rd and 20 podcast. If I'm Juju, I'm probably going to the Chiefs. But one thing I will say is he just earned the respect of every Pittsburgh Steelers fan out there. He is, his respect level has gone from already relatively high to, okay, we freaking love you, Juju. You're the man. So I think that now it's almost like if he leaves in free agency next year, the Steelers fans, because like you said, I expect Ben Roethlisberger to retire next year. I think all the Steelers fans would be like, hey, we respect you. You ran it back with us. We're still mad to see you go, but it's cool. It's cool. We're on good terms, right?
I feel like that attitude would change though if he did go and sign with the Ravens, like original reports were saying that.
Oh yeah.
Everything Frank said would just go immediately out the window.
Speaking of out of the window, let's move on to the next free agency signing. We have Kenyan Drake decided to sign with the Raiders, and that kind of just establishes he's going to be behind Josh Jacobs, which really tanks Kenyan Drake's value. But I think the bigger part that we have to talk about is what happens to Josh Jacobs' value. Because we already knew here, Frank was already really low on Kenyan Drake. I didn't love him that much either. I think none of the podcast was really going to bat for him. But there were people here who like Josh Jacobs. He was a borderline RB1 for us, RB2 in our Dynasty rankings. Where is he at now? Where are we ranking Josh Jacobs?
I have him falling a decent amount here, just because the reason why Josh Jacobs ranked so highly for me was just the sheer volume of touches that he got every single game. Like, he was actually not very productive with those touches. He averaged somewhere like just over 3 yards a carry. Like, he was not very productive with these touches. But now you add, Kenyan Drake into the mix, who I had admittedly said I'm not a fan of in the past, and I'm still not, but he is still going to garner probably about 10 to 15 touches a game somewhere along the line. Like, I don't know. I just think this just tanks both of their values. I just don't see Josh Jacobs getting, the 30 touches that he was getting last season this upcoming year, just because, Kenyan Drake will get touches, and they're going to split this backfield, I think, relatively 50-50 down the middle.
I'm not buying that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split, but I do think Josh Jacobs isn't going to get nearly as many carries as he did. I still think he will be the goal line back, because we kind of saw Kenyan Drake wasn't that great on goal line work. I know he got it when Chase Edmonds, he was leaned on it rather than Chase Edmonds. I think Josh Jacobs is just the better runner in that regard. But when Josh Jacobs isn't a workhorse back, and he's not great in the receiving game, like, his value does drop a lot, because a lot of his value came from his usage and that he was a bell cow. So even if Kenyan Drake takes like 6 to 7 carries away from him a game that he was expected to have, that immediately hurts him. That's like saying, Derrick Henry's getting 10 less carries. Like, very much hurts his value. That's my take on it.
I still like Josh Jacobs. My opinion doesn't sway of him. I think it's for two reasons. I still believe in Josh Jacobs' talent. I really don't care about the whole carry stuff. I think that a large reason we saw a drop in productivity last year was because the Raiders' offensive line didn't play as well as it really should have last year. We saw Trent Brown had dealt with injuries basically the entire season. I believe Richie Incognito was injured for a decent portion of the season too. The games he played, he was good, but he just missed a lot of games. And I think that was a major reason for that lack of production. The other thing is that I just think Kenyan Drake is a complete jag. My opinion of Kenyan Drake has not changed. He is still not a trash running back, but everyone kind of took the bait and thinking, oh, Kenyan Drake, he's this ultra-talented RB1 type of back. No, he's not. He's at best an 8 to 10 carry a game kind of a back. I think that this mainly is a signing for the 2 or 4 games, I think it's 2, that Josh Jacobs is suspended for. And I believe that they may look to also cut Jalen Richard because of Jalen Richard's $3 or $3.5 million cap hit. And they would have just rather have shelled out a little bit more cash to get a proven back in Kenyan Drake. Whereas Jalen Richard, God forbid he's an RB1 somewhere when Josh Jacobs or the lead back goes down, because my God, that would be a scary sight for any offense to have to deal with. So I think it was more on that note and less so that, hey, Josh Jacobs is not as good as we thought he was.
I don't know, man. You don't go out and give a running back $5.5 million, basically guaranteed in each of the next 2 seasons, for no reason. Like, you don't pay a running back that much if you're not going to use them. Like, you
They're
can
still
easily
going to use them. They use Jalen Richard and Devonta Booker. It's just now they get an actual guy that they can use instead of 2 scrubs.
Right, but they were paying both of them combined the same as they were paying one back this year. It's just a little different. Like, you don't pay one running back that much and not use him. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is the better running back out of the 2, but he's going to be used, and I think it's going to take a bigger chunk out of Josh Jacobs' touches than you think. And like I said 50-50 earlier. Obviously, it's not. I think it's probably going to be 70-30, but that's still more than any of the other backs on the Raiders took from Josh Jacobs last year. He was getting like 90% of these running back touches last year. It was absurd.
You just take the carries from 2 scrubs, combine them, and then you get Kenyan Drake's workload. Maybe add like 5%.
I guess time will tell. The Raiders did sign someone
Adrian
else.
Peterson last season had a higher forced missed tackle rate than Kenyan Drake. All right, John Gruden's gonna give Kenyan Drake a couple carries, and then they're gonna realize, oh shit, this guy's such a jag, he sucks, and then bang time. Josh Jacobs is back at the workload. He's gonna be nice and fresh. A couple games of the season off that suspension. And I'm buying everywhere I can for any sort of discount. Bang time. Give me Josh Jacobs.
All right. Well, anti-Kenyan Drake Frank is here. Now, the Raiders did sign someone else. They signed John Brown, the wide receiver. I don't really know what that means towards Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, Darren Waller. Just something, I guess, to touch on. It doesn't really excite me too much. I don't know. Do you guys really care about John Brown? Do you think he'll be fantasy relevant? Will he make someone else not fantasy relevant?
I think he could be fantasy relevant, especially for the price that you can get for him. I think it's all right. It's just I'm not banking on him by any stretch of the imagination. But we saw what happened with Nelson Aguilar. I just think the problem is that he's just not going to be as consistent as Aguilar was. I really think that we're going to see Brian Edwards take over that Nelson Aguilar role.
Yeah. I don't know. Just something to touch on, I guess. So, moving on. This kind of happened a week ago, but, things happen, stuff happens after we record. But Curtis Samuel decided to team up with his roommate at Washington. I'm sorry, I don't think my stuff is recording right now. Okay, now it is. I don't think so sorry. Curtis Samuel decided to team up with Terry McLaurin on the Washington football team, and now they're with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Antonio Gibson. What do you guys think about the team going in the future?
I think it's going to be a fun team to watch this year. I mean, you're going to have Curtis Samuel and Terry on the outside, a good pass-catching back in the backfield, with good old gunslinger Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. Man, this is going to be a fun team to watch. As much as I don't want to admit it, but they're going to they're going to be in a lot of games where you go, that was one of the ugliest games I've ever seen. But you're going to also be watch some of these games and see like, wow, they put up like 50 points. So I'm excited for it from a fantasy perspective here. Curtis Samuel, I think, is going to, have a very good season. Same with Terry. I think we've seen it that Ryan Fitzpatrick can support an offense fantasy-wise, and I'm excited. Who doesn't love a little Fitz magic in their life?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this team too. Taylor Heineke's probably going to be playing pretty well with the weapons that he's got. Dude, I'm not giving up on Taylor Heineke, man. Give me all the Taylor Heineke.
What do you have for this guy? Like, do you represent him? I don't get it.
He proved me wrong. He really shocked me in that playoff game. Guy played really well. He looked like a starting quarterback out there. Yeah, it's only one game, but dude, fuck, he showed me a whole lot more than I've seen out of some pretty highly rated quarterbacks.
I mean, Fitzpatrick's done it for a whole career.
I love Fitzmagic too, but this is the Heineke we're talking about, all right? This ain't Joe Schmo. This is Taylor Heineke, all right?
I have Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke in our league. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, although I wouldn't mind Taylor Heineke becoming an NFL starting quarterback. I'm not really willing to gamble on it right this second. Maybe if I see more of him and actually have more than one good playoff game and actually string a couple good regular season games together, then I'd be excited. But for now, I'm just pumping the brakes on that. Anything else you guys got to add on the Washington football team before we move on? Cool. So moving on, rest in peace to anyone who actually still believed in Rashard Penny, because Chris Carson decided to re-sign with the Seattle Seahawks. Do you guys think that was the best place for Chris Carson to end up?
Absolutely. Like, not much to add there. Like, he's proven to be good in this Seattle system. He has Russ, he has DK, he has Lockett on the outside. I don't know. He's familiar with it. I just, like we said, running backs that go elsewhere rarely improve. So I just think him staying at consistent value, at least for next season, is a big plus for fantasy owners that kept him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't. Maybe there's a slightly better spot. I was thinking, because I'm dropping that Arizona Cardinals analysis. I think the Carson would fit there, but I think that the Seahawks offense is a little bit more favorable than the Cardinals offense for a running back right now.
All right, yeah, I can't really imagine him doing anything more productive on another team. So with that, I think the Seahawks.
Wait, real quick, what do you guys think, Chris? What do you think Chris Carson's price is right now?
Jake,
probably. I think Chris Carson you probably get for a back end second. Like, I don't think his value is very high. I think a lot of people kind of expected him to sign elsewhere, so this news might boost his value a little bit. But overall, it's probably the mid to late second at highest. I think you could probably get him for a late second, just because people are worried about the Russ situation in Seattle. People are worried about his age, his injuries. I just think overall he's a back that a lot of people are very wary of, and you can get him for a pretty decent price, and he's likely to end up like as a very solid RB2. So goodbye, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. He's someone I feel like I guess I just ride out for the price, to be honest. I think like whatever he does. Just because I just can't imagine getting anything kind of a good deal, like a favorable deal for Chris Carson at this point. All right. So in that case, then I guess we'll move on again. We're kind of in the depths of free agency now, and probably not going to be starters for you guys. So I guess I'll just throw a bunch of these guys together real quick, and we could talk about them. We've got Mike Davis, Josh Reynolds, and A.J. Green. Mike Davis signed with the Falcons. Josh Reynolds signed with the Titans. A.J. Green signed with the Cardinals. And I'll lump in Deshaun Jackson too, sorry. And Deshaun Jackson signed with the Rams. Are you excited about any of these guys? Are there any of these guys that you want to go out and buy? Do you think they have a good opportunity, a good fit? What do you think?
I'll jump in. I mean, I think the clear buy out of these guys for me is Josh Reynolds. He's a guy that I've liked previously in the past with the Rams, and now he takes over as this number 2 receiver in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, who's a blooming quarterback even at a late age. He's just starting to really take into his own. We saw last season he was capable of supporting both A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. I think Josh Reynolds will step right into that Corey Davis role, and it's a really good fit in my opinion. Other than that, I think A.J. Green is the next guy I'm kind of interested in. Obviously, he had a horrible year last year with the Bengals. It was a really disappointing year for a guy that we're used to being a perpetual top wide receiver. Obviously, the season prior he missed completely with injury, and he was coming back. But I think signing here in Arizona, opposite of Hopkins here, and with Kyler Murray at quarterback, is definitely something that I think intrigues a lot of people. If I was an owner, I might want to sell on the hype here if I had him, and you just get anything at this point, because he is obviously definitely aging out, and if you can get a second-round pick, even maybe an early third for A.J. Green, I think it's time to hit the sell button on him.
Yeah, I was going to say the one that interests me, not necessarily in terms of a buy, but because it's really interesting, is A.J. Green and Deshaun Jackson, the two vets. Mainly A.J. Green. Like I said a little bit ago, I'm doing this Cardinals analysis. One of the things that was just glaringly obvious was the fact that this team needs a legit number 2, because their most reliable receiver outside of DeAndre Hopkins was Larry Fitzgerald, which, considering he was like 38 or 39, still had good hands, but he couldn't separate as well as he could in his prime. It was a huge problem for that offense. Do I think I'm getting that in A.J. Green? Probably not. But if they do, I mean, there's plenty of upside. I'm personally not buying, but I think it's interesting. And I guess the other one is Deshaun Jackson. McVay clearly wanted to get a speedster. We saw that the offense was nowhere near as much of a threat vertically down the field as we saw in 2019 without Brandon Cooks. Tries to bring in some... I think that they tried to have it with Van Jefferson being that vertical guy who could also win one-on-one. Not to say that experiment has failed, it just didn't pan out quickly, or maybe they have a different plan for him, so they bring in Deshaun Jackson to be a guy that can stretch defenses. And now that you bring in Matthew Stafford, maybe we see the Rams' offense back to its 2019 glory with Sean McVay, more so than the past, or was it 2018 that they were really good? One of those 2 years. Instead of the more recent Rams offense that we've seen, where they've kind of just been relatively pedestrian.
Just to add on to that, the key to this Rams offense, I mean, I think it's Cam Akers. I mean, obviously they went out and the big addition has been Matthew Stafford, but I think the key to this offense and McVay's offense in general is Cam Akers. They were most successful when Todd Gurley was running through the league and then play action passing. I just think this is McVay's bread and butter, and if Cam Akers can actually scare a defense, I think this offense will take a step that puts them close to back where they were when Gurley was an elite back.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll take the other standpoint then. Just in terms of the other guys, Mike Davis and Josh Reynolds. We saw what Mike Davis was able to do with Christian McCaffrey out. If he's able to even recreate part of that, he still will be a relevant fantasy option, a good flex play. Who knows what they're going to do with running back in the rookie draft, the Falcons. But if they don't draft a running back and they don't have that starting guy, I don't really hate Mike Davis on the Falcons there. The other one who we touched on a little bit, Josh Reynolds. He was one of those other guys like Juju that had an offer from the Chiefs, but instead decided to sign with the Titans. And I'm not really sure why he did, but I guess it's for the opportunity, right? Because on the Titans right now, he's the wide receiver too. Like, he's the wide receiver too on the Titans. We saw what he was able to do when he was the wide receiver too on the Rams. He was able to produce there with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both battling injuries at times, mainly Cooper Kupp. So this could be time for him to be productive. I feel like this is really a make or break kind of year for Josh Reynolds to see if he'll ever have like actual fantasy relevance. Mike Davis was probably last year, but maybe he could still hold on to that this year for a little bit. Moving on with that, with all the free agency signings and everything, right? The Lions' top receiver currently is Tyrell Williams. I guess that kind of means their top receiver is T.J. Hawkinson, technically, but what are the Lions doing, guys? Like, are they just going to roll into this year with Tyrell Williams as their wide receiver one?
They're definitely going to draft some people.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine this isn't an area that they address in the draft, especially with how loaded this wide receiver class is. We've talked about that a whole bunch of times. Like, I don't expect them to take one in round one, and probably not even in round two, just because the Lions have so many other holes that they need to fill here. Receivers kind of at the bottom of the barrel, but I would definitely expect a round three guy or even a day three guy, or maybe even two to bolster this receiving core.
Well, I'll tell you what, who's being extremely undervalued in the offseason is Quintez Cephas. Quintez Cephas is a guy that I liked coming out. I think that his combine, mainly his 40 time, turned a lot of people off of him as a prospect. But I think the thing with Quintez Cephas is he's a guy with strong hands. He's a great blocker. And I think he's just a good football player. So when you're on a team like the Lions, who generally speaking don't have a ton of good football players, you're going to have a big opportunity. And I think that we've been hyping up guys like Gabriel Davis, Darnell Mooney. A lot of the other rookie receivers have been being really hyped up. But in terms of a guy that I could see having some year 2, year 3 impacts that you might be able to get for pretty cheap, I'm looking to buy Quintez Cephas anywhere I can, especially if I'm a rebuilding team. I think that the risk-reward with Quintez Cephas is crazy good, and not that I expect him to come out and blossom into a wide receiver one, but in terms of a dude that can be a flex player and a consistent flex player on your fantasy team, I think he could be an unbelievably good buy.
All right. With that, what's the price you're willing to give up for Quintez Cephas?
That's a good question. Quintez Cephas, I think, like I said, I think he's a good target for a rebuilding team. I think that he's the kind of guy that I would look to almost treat more as a throw-in on a deal than specifically going out to buy. Like, if my team, I'm rebuilding and I suck, and let's say I have Matthew Stafford, and I'm looking to sell Matthew Stafford on the hype now that he's on the Rams, well, I try to maybe on the back end of the deal throw in Quintez Cephas or something else along those lines. Other than that, a mid-third maybe. I think one of the problems that I have with giving up draft picks for Quintez Cephas in this draft specifically is that there's so many receivers. There's so many. So I think right now, third-round picks, early fourth-round picks, even to mid-fourth-round picks are being pretty undervalued by the community. Usually you'll have the guys saying, oh, well, once you get to the mid-third, it's fucking useless. Like, I have some guys that I would really want and really value that might be going in the mid-fourths that I have valued as in a class like, let's say, 2019, maybe an early third or even a very late second.
Yeah, and so I have Quintez Cephas in our league, and I think that like 304, 305, I'd be like, yeah, See, I'm good. Because at that point, I feel like I could take a risk on a player that I even think has a better profile, maybe a better opportunity. Um, so right around there is probably what I give up. He was probably drafted somewhere in the 4th round in your fantasy league last year, if you even have 4 rounds. Maybe if you're a shallower league, he could still. I doubt he's on waivers, but he could still be on waivers in a shallower league. He's just sitting on my taxi right now, and currently I'm just kind of comfortable with him on my taxi. He's just whatever. I think that was a great point, Frank. He probably would just be a good throw-in on a deal. For both sides, I'd throw him in to kind of make a deal look a little better for someone, and I'm sure someone else would be willing to take him on, as sneakily like, oh, just toss him in Quinta Cephas and I'll make the deal work. And that's kind of how it works. That's how fantasy trading works. All right. Now let's talk some rookie talk. We had some not Pro Bowl, sorry. Some pro days.
Going to be.
we had some pro days happen. First we had Alabama, where Mac Jones threw a little bit. I don't know. I didn't really get to see the tape that much. People were saying he looked a little more athletic than other people would have you believe. Look, Mac Jones's athleticism isn't really what I'm buying Mac Jones for. On the other hand, though, the bigger news, Devonta Smith was coming in at 170 pounds. And I wish I had my phone on me right now to give credit. But someone did a study, and there is a debate about one other receiver. But since 1999, receivers to have over 1,000 yards that weighed 170 pounds or less is only one player, Deshaun Jackson. There is debate about Chad Ochocinco and Chad Ochocinco's weight. He claims that he played at 170 in college. Google will tell you he's in the 180s. Regardless, that makes it 2 total players. So I've been known to be the Devonta Smith hater on this podcast. Does that worry you guys at all about the weight only coming in at 170?
No. And sorry, Jake, I'm taking this real quick. Mainly because you look at it was the same conversation for linebackers not too long ago. I remember I'm a South Carolina alum, even though I got the Rutgers sweatshirt on. I think his name was Sky Moore, one of those tweener safety linebacker kind of guys. I thought he was pretty good and deserved a shot in the league. He ended up going undrafted. Guys like him, those safety linebacker hybrids, used to just be that, oh, well, you're just kind of shit out of luck. You're too small for this position, too big for this position. Well, now that's almost the prototypical linebacker, is this 225-pound, more pass coverage first linebacker, which is almost 20 pounds off of what the standard of linebacker used to be. Every position on defense is getting smaller. Well, it's only natural for the positions on offense to get smaller and faster as well, like they've been doing. So I just personally believe that the issue's a little... What's up?
I have a study for you, though, Frank. Believe it or not. Okay, hold on. Let me give credit.
Tinder girl JT needs to take a timeout.
No.
Because
I've got that. I want to give credit. It's at ZWK Football. He tweeted out. So it's contrary to what Frank actually was saying. Incoming wide receiver BMI has actually increased from 1989 to now. It was about 25.2 in 1989, and now it's 26.8. So players are actually, bigger at their size than they were, 20-something odd years ago, almost 30 years ago. Actually, over 30.
Yeah, but BMI also gives you, it favors if you're compact, right? Like, I don't know BMIs of all the players, but I can imagine that Rondale Moore passes the BMI test with flying colors because the dude's built like a brick house, right? The thing is that I value what I see on the tape more. Devonta Smith, I've seen lanky-ass corners have success, right? And I've seen the same things being said poorly against them. Oh, well, they're going to get bullied by these bigger receivers. Well, guess what? If you're good at football, you're good at football, and you're going to be good enough to play around this. I don't really see the knocks against... the only thing I guess you can really say is that maybe he's a little frail and he'll get injured. I haven't seen that. To the people that say he's not going to be able to beat press, well, just look at the tape. I can show you a clip of him putting people to the floor with his releases. Literally, to the floor. SEC level corners. I don't buy into it. I can understand the concerns. I just don't really care, to be honest.
I just think, I mean, we've hit it over the head 1,000 times, so I'll make it real quick. When we're talking alpha wide receivers, and that's who you want to draft in your first round pick, that's who you want to get. You want to get the guy who will end up being the wide receiver one. With someone that size, we just don't see them becoming the alpha wide receiver. Do I think Devonta Smith could have NFL success? Yes. I think that Devonta Smith could be good. But there is an issue with outliers, and you're betting on an outlier in Devonta Smith. And then there's also the issue of there are other wide receivers around that range that are also really good, like Jamar Chase. I know Frank's not big on him, but Rashad Bateman, Jalen Waddle, and those guys kind of fit the mold that you really want to see when we're talking analytics. So why am I going to spend pick 106 in a Superflex league on Devonta Smith when I could spend pick 110 on Rashad Bateman and Jalen Waddle, whoever falls to me? That's just what my debate is.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, is that I can point out outlier stats for any of these guys. Like I understand it's not going to be as pretty as looking at someone's weight, but I can probably go ahead and look at the production level of Jalen Waddle and be like, oh, well, only X amount of players with his total production in the SEC conference have panned out, right? Like, I don't know necessarily. It's just, the thing is, I think the argument has gotten a little misconstrued. Like, yeah, he's kind of frail, but he's still an alpha receiver. Like, Stephon Diggs is an alpha receiver, right? Stephon Diggs is not going out there and destroying people physically. He's not going out there and decking linebackers left and right. The guy is really quick with a good release, got good feet, and good 50-50 balls. Like, that's exactly what Devonta Smith is. So, I mean, I can see why people are scared. I'm not going to pass up on him. Like, I can see why people are scared in terms of, okay, I'd rather have Jamar Chase. But I can't all of a sudden say, oh, well, Devonta Smith isn't one of the best receiver prospects I've ever seen. Like, I'm not just going to take all this body of work, all this beautiful game tape that I see, and just be like, oh, well, he's 10 pounds too light. Sorry, champ. Can't do it.
All right, real quick, Frank, and we can move on to Rondale Moore. Where would you have ranked Devonta Smith in your wide receiver rankings last year? Like, say he came out last year. Where would he have been?
Number one.
He would have been number one?
Number one.
Over
Not
CeeDee
at the
Lamb?
time. As of right now, yes. Last year, when I had him graded, he was around 5 or 6 for me. I think he was, like, slotted in right behind Brandon Ayuk, and I think in front of Rager and Justin Jefferson, somewhere around there. Maybe Justin Jefferson. I can't remember.
All right, but regardless,
Because
right?
he went back pretty quickly.
You had him around 5 or 6. It's just, I get that he improved this year, but he was also a senior this year, and with that, it's very hard for me to bump him up. I also get that this wide receiver class, is very good. It probably won't have as many people pan out as last year's did. But to have him moved up from wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5, maybe to wide receiver 2, I can't do it, because really we're bumping him up a lot because of his senior year production, and that's not something
I had him as my wide receiver 2 coming into the season.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I had Jamar. My top 3 receivers has not changed since the beginning of the season. It was Jamar Chase 1, Devonta Smith 2, Rondale Moore 3. Now I've just put Devonta Smith at 1 because I really like what I saw. I can see why, and I still, as the process goes on, like, if I like the fit of Jamar Chase, might have him at 1. Like, I'm not anti-Jamar Chase or anything. It's just, I don't understand the hate with Devonta Smith. Like, if he was 5 pounds heavier, he goes from, or 7.5 pounds, let's say. That is the difference that makes him go from
at his height,
a great prospect to a shit prospect.
15. At his height, it'd have to be like 15 plus for him to, because he's 6'1". So you probably want him around 185 plus for BMI purposes. But
I don't know. I just don't. I don't really care. Like, I don't think you need the weight in the modern game. I don't really care what the trends with the BMI is, what the trends with this, that, and the other is. I think that good receivers are good receivers. Good football players are good football players. I don't want him to go to a system where we're not running RPOs and we're asking our receivers to block a crap ton. Yeah, then I'd rather have Jamar Chase. But aside from that, I really like Devonta Smith.
All right. Well,
Clearly.
On the other side of the coin is we've got the very compact, kind of bowling ball-esque Rondale Moore, who was like 5'7", 181 pounds. He did run, I forget what he ran for. It was like 4.3, I think, was his 40-yard dash. He had like a 42.5-inch vertical. He didn't bench press, but he tweeted out a video of him putting it up like 24 times or something like that. Just an athlete, like the definition of an athlete. But he's 5'7", which personally, I'm less upset about that. I'm less upset about that than Devonta Smith's weight. I'm just more concerned what NFL teams are going to think, because I saw some NFL scouts put on Twitter that maybe that'll put him into like an Eckler or Sproles role, and I don't think that's what Rondale Moore should be. Rondale Moore is a good wide receiver. Rondale Moore is someone that's going to be very good coming out of the slot. I like Rondale Moore more than Devonta Smith, to be honest with you. What's important about Rondale Moore is that he plays a lot bigger than he is, and he's a very physical wide receiver. So being only 5'7" doesn't really hurt me. Like, I feel like a lot of people on Twitter are kind of reacting to it. They think that really hurts Rondale Moore's stock. I don't think it really changes it for me. Does it change it for you guys?
Not at all.
Jake's looking like it does.
Jake, are you going on to the side of the Tinder girls here?
Listen, like, obviously, like, a lot of corners aren't, 6'5" or anything like that, but, like, it's still tough when you're that small in the NFL. Like, in college, you can let his elite athleticism, like, take over, and I don't know, I think it's going to be tougher to get him the ball. I mean, he's not going to be, you just don't create as much separation as you do in college. It's just because corners are better, the NFL defenses as a whole are better. They're going to have to, teams are going to have to be creative to get him the ball to showcase this elite athleticism that he does have, but it definitely doesn't help. If he was 5'9", listen, like, I think a lot of teams, I think he would go in potentially the first round of the NFL draft, and he still might, but I just think this makes it a whole lot difficult.
Even if he goes in the third round, I still really like Rondale Moore. I just think, to your point about having him beat NFL corners, like, I just don't think he'll be a jump ball guy, which, I mean, he did have a 42.5-inch vertical, but, like, his game really was never being a jump ball guy. Like, that's not how he won against college.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, he used his athleticism in college to get, fantastic separation. It's just you're not going to get that separation. You're playing against a better defense. You're playing against a better D-back. Like, if that separation isn't the same, you have to have better, physical tools here to help you make better plays. And yes, he has the athleticism, he has the speed, he has the jump, he has the hands. But, being a big physical wide receiver definitely has its advantages. I mean, look at DK Metcalf. Like, is he as, like, he's a physical freak in his own sense. So, like, it's a completely different game here. I'm not comparing them as the same type of wide receiver here, but, like, DK Metcalf can do a lot of things that Rondale Moore will never be able to do at this level. And I think it kind of leaves...
Rondale Moore can also do things that DK can't do, too.
Yeah. That's my thing. Like, I just don't think... when you're saying he has to be like athletic and be physically gifted, he is just in a different skill set than DK Metcalf. So while my thing is he will need to be on a team where he's not going to be the wide receiver one, like the alpha guy, but I still do think like where you're getting him, like right now he's getting drafted at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Like, you're getting a very solid, I imagine, wide receiver 2 production out of him year in and year out. Just because I think he's got such a great tool set, and he can beat. I truly believe he can beat NFL corners easily. No, yeah, I think I'll go out there and say easily, just because he's so athletically gifted. He's such a talent and freak of nature kind of athlete. I don't know, Frank, if you want to add in on that at all.
No, I like everyone wants to compare Jalen Waddle to Tyreek Hill and players like Jalen Waddle. I don't understand why that's not actually being comped to Rondale Moore, because the thing about Tyreek Hill is that he plays with that physicality, that nice center of gravity, that really nice balance. He's developed a really good release, and even though Tyreek Hill's not a great route runner, it's tough to get him off his spot. It's tough to reroute him. Well, Rondale Moore is that. Rondale Moore is a guy that has a good release off the line of scrimmage. He's really fast. I think he has better footwork and better routes than Tyreek Hill did. Way better coming out. I mean, Tyreek Hill's a freaking running back. So, I really like Rondale Moore.
It's funny you said Tyreek Hill, because that's actually who I had him. That's who I had Rondale Moore comp to, as less fast, because Tyreek Hill is one of the fastest players we've ever seen in the NFL. So I had him comp to Tyreek Hill, but even Tyreek Hill is 5'10". So it gives him I would be interested to see the difference in, I guess, wingspan and catch radius and things of that nature that would ease my concerns of the height.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Rondale Moore to come in here and be a top 5 receiver in the game off rip, right? But I think that if we're taking players that have the potential of being true number 1 alpha receivers, I think Rondale Moore is one of the better prospects in that. I know that's going to come off as a hot take, because you're going to have the JTs that are jerking Rashad Bateman until the cows come home, because he fits.
Like Rashad Bateman.
He checks every physical box. All the Tinder chicks and the data analytics folks are getting their panties in a bunch over these guys. But simply put, I look at the tape and I see a better receiver in Rondale Moore than I do compared to Rashad Bateman, than I do compared to Terrace Marshall, and by a good margin. So I'd much rather have Rondale Moore. I don't care about the height.
Where do you have him ranked right now?
Who?
Moore. What number of receiver do you have him? All right. It's higher than I have him, but I mean, I'm not far behind. I think I had him closer to 5 and 6, but still.
I think he's my 4 or 5. But with that, I'd still draft him high second round, late first round easily. If he's on the board and I'm picking right around there, I'm taking Rondale Moore, unless the receivers I have higher than obviously are still on the board. I take them. But real quick, and then we'll move on. A lot of what goes with Rondale Moore is his crazy freshman season, right? He had over 100 receptions and 1,000 yards and over 10 touchdowns his freshman season. And you just got to think, that's an 18-year-old playing against 21-year-old players. He already is behind the 8 ball at that point, and he definitely wasn't 180 pounds when he was coming in. He still was 5'7". So if he's able to do that against college corners at that time, I'm just not that worried about him doing it against NFL players, because he was already doing it when he was at a big disadvantage prior. Moving on.
If he was playing for Alabama, he would be super hyped. Not that he's not already hyped, but that Purdue offense sucked.
If any of those, if you put Terrace Marshall on Alabama, if you put Diami Brown on Alabama, these guys.
Oh my God, Diami Brown is so good.
These guys would be so much more hyped up. It's just that the Alabama name brand, you're going to compare, you're going to be like, oh, they had Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy on the same team. That's why Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle are going to be really good. And they could be, but it's just, you got to give the other guys their fair shake, too. Rashad Bateman is a very good wide receiver. He outplayed Tyler Johnson when he was young. And so Terrace Marshall, he didn't outplay Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but he was competing with them. He was on the field with those guys. So, I don't know. It's tough for me when you go and compare with college teams, I'm sorry. Moving on, we're going to go on to our quarterback rankings. Oh, actually, I think Do you guys want to save the quarterback rankings for the next episode? We'll have something else.
No,
Keep going.
Let's do the quarterback rankings, and then I think that's where we should wrap it.
All right, so we'll do quarterback rankings this episode. I'm sure we'll have tons of stuff to talk about next episode because there's always news going on. So we're ranking the quarterbacks for the 2021 NFL prospects. We ranked 10 of them. I'll be honest, after around 7, it gets kind of tough. So I guess we'll just run through it real quick, talk about consensus, talk about where we had guys. Obviously, at number 1, we all had Trevor Lawrence. There's no contention there. We've talked about before. Number 2, I have Justin Fields. Jake and Frank have Zach Wilson. I guess, do you guys want me to talk about why I'm lower on Zach Wilson, higher on Justin Fields? How do you think we should take this?
Let's hear why you're high on. Let's hear why you're high on Fields, because I think me and Frank both don't even have him at 3. We have him at 4.
Really? Oh, that's interesting, actually. Oh, you have 2 different players at 3 too. Wow. Okay, I didn't notice that at first. I just think, me and Frank have talked about before, not on the podcast, but I just think Justin Fields probably is of the mold of the next kind of Russell Wilson type player. I think he's someone that can just make plays. Like, he is a playmaker. There's a lot of questions about his anticipation. I think that's where he gets knocked the most. But it's just something that I feel like you give him a good NFL coach, quarterback coach, like, he'll be fine. He'll be able to read defenses. I just think at Ohio State, you're kind of asked to go and look at your first read, and kind of the plays designed around the first read, and it works more because you're playing against college players. But it's just something where I think it's kind of overvalued for scouts and what people are knocking Justin Fields for. I just think if Trevor Lawrence wasn't in this draft class, we'd be talking about Justin Fields as the consensus number 1 because of how good Justin Fields really is. If you have any question marks about Justin Fields, literally just go and watch his recent playoff run. He looked amazing in those games. But, the important part is it's not just those games he looks amazing in. He looks really good in most of his games. There was one tough game against Northwestern, but to be honest, Northwestern has one of the best defenses in college football. They're an underrated team. I just think I don't really have questions about him playing in the NFL. I'm sure he'll be an NFL starter. I think he's very athletically talented. People try and knock him because he comes out of Ohio State, where Dwayne Haskins just was from, and they feel hurt from Dwayne Haskins, Terrell Pryor, Cardell Jones. He's not those guys. He's a much different skill set. He's a very athletically gifted. I don't know how much more you guys want me to ramble on about him, but that's what I feel like. That's how I feel about Justin Fields. I guess if you guys want to pitch to me why Zach Wilson is better.
He just makes more impressive throws.
Fair
and
enough.
Consistently. Listen, I like a lot of these quarterbacks. All these top 5 guys I have first-round grades on in both the NFL draft and Dynasty draft, and relatively high first-round grades. So yeah, I while you have Justin Fields at 2, I have him at 4. That doesn't mean that in a Dynasty draft I would shy away from Justin Fields. If I'm picking there at 5 and I need a quarterback and I want a quarterback, I would be very happy with landing Justin Fields there. I just think that there are a couple guys I'd rather have over him, and that's just kind of the honest truth about it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I don't dislike Zach Wilson. I feel like Justin Fields is the better bet, just because, we kind of seen one really good year out of Zach Wilson. I know he tore his labrum or whatever. He hurt his shoulder. I know it was that kind of injury. So we didn't get to see much of him the year prior. But when I look at Zach Wilson play, it's going to sound like old football kind of stuff, but he just doesn't seem to be that kind of leader that I feel like the other guys really are. Don't give me
You're
that.
really gonna pull.
Bo
You're really
Allen.
gonna pull the. You're really going to say he's not a leader. Have you been in the locker room, JT? Do you know what he says to his teammates? Like,
No, but
this guy went out and won games. He went out and made the plays that you need. He made BYU like a very...
Tim Tebow won games. Like, there are a lot of NFL quarterbacks.
Tim Tebow did not make throws that Zach Wilson did. You saw Zach Wilson, run out and throw the ball 35 yards across his body the other direction. Like, he just made throws that
as an NFL quarterback. If you're throwing across your body, you're getting picked off.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's...
Tell that to Patrick Mahomes. He does it all the time.
Patrick Mahomes is in a different atmosphere.
I'm in Jake's camp in that when I watch Zach Wilson, I'm just way more impressed. He makes more impressive throws. I can understand your argument that Justin Fields is a better raw talent, but I think that Zach Wilson's just farther along, and if I was a coach and I had to pick between the two of them to start a team around, I'm picking Zach Wilson every time.
I can see the logic, I guess. I just can't get behind it. It's something that obviously we're going to disagree on, and the only way we're going to be able to tell is like when the actual NFL draft comes up. I
will say the one thing I'm concerned about is that Zach Wilson's going to go to the frickin' Jets, and I don't care about the new coaching staff. I don't trust the Jets, and that's going to really scare the living shit out of me. Is that I don't care who the coach is. Like, I like their coaching staff, but goddamn, it's the Jets. Like, are we really that quick to forgive what we've seen in the past, 40 years?
I'm not. I also wouldn't put beyond the Jets to draft the one bust too. So that's another reason why I'm willing to fade Zach Wilson. It would be if 5 quarterbacks go in the first round and 4 of them go on to be Pro Bowlers and maybe even All Pros. It's just the Jets have the one that's not. I would not be shocked in the slightest.
The Jets picked up some good free agents, but we have to remember this is a team that needed every single position.
Everything.
They needed 11 new players. Okay, yeah, Mekhi Becton looked good, but he still wasn't a consistent tackle. I think he's more of the DJ Humphreys than he is the Tyron Smiths, for example, right? That's going to come as a hot take, but goddamn, I watched 12 Jets games, and that's what I saw. All right, let's move on, though. Let's move on. Different argument.
Yeah, and we don't even know if... it's projected, but we're not entirely sure where Zach Wilson's going, all right? But that is our consensus 1, 2, 3 in order to go. Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, Justin Fields 3. The fourth guy that we have, who Jake and I actually both have at 3 in our rankings, is Trey Lance. Frank's kind of lower on it. I feel like we've talked about it before, but Frank, if you want to just touch on it real quick, why are you lower on Trey Lance than Jake?
So... everyone seems to use the excuse of Josh Allen for Trey Lance, in that this is the narrative, right? That, okay, Trey Lance is an inaccurate quarterback, Josh Allen was an inaccurate quarterback, accuracy can be fixed, Trey Lance, big arm, good running, he's good. And I really disagree with that, mainly because I really like Josh Allen coming out, and I'm not high on Trey Lance. I think that Trey Lance... it's just too inconsistent for me, and the fact that he didn't play this year, it's how am I really supposed to believe in him with a high first-round pick with so many question marks, That's the main thing with Trey Lance. I haven't seen it with consistency. I think mentally he's pretty good. He has the arm talent and the raw talent, but I'm not going to bet on a guy that I haven't seen it consistently on film like I did with Josh Allen. I think he has more accuracy issues, way more accuracy issues than Josh Allen did, and Justin Herbert, these guys that are known as accuracy issue guys. I think that his running ability isn't at the level of Justin Fields like other people think it is, and that he wasn't really asked to throw the ball a whole ton at North Dakota State. So I think with all those factors, I'd rather have these other guys over him, and I'm not going to take him with a high first-round pick.
All right, so... let me kind of group Trey Lance in with our next guy, right? We have Trey Lance at... one of our next guys. Trey Lance at 4. We're going to skip over Mac Jones at 5 real quick and talk about Kellen Mond at 6. Frank, when you're talking about accuracy stuff with Trey Lance, does that not concern you with Kellen Mond? You have Kellen Mond at 3. Trey Lance, in his one real mean season that we're basing it off, had a 67% completion, while Kellen Mond never hit that. I get that Trey Lance is playing against different competition. Kellen Mond's facing, for the most part, SEC schools. Trey Lance is not, obviously. But, staying under 66% his entire career, are you concerned at all about Kellen Mond's completion percentage?
Well, one thing I will say, and I don't have the stats to back it up, but it's what I saw, is that Kellen Mond's receivers definitely dropped a whole lot more passes than Trey Lance's receivers. I think the other thing is that Kellen Mond on more difficult throws was way more consistently accurate than Trey Lance was on difficult throws. I think that Kellen Mond, his accuracy issues stem from awkward footwork and a little bit of that stiffness. I jokingly say it looks like he has a stick up his ass because he's just so stiff when he throws the ball. I think that if you get him in an offense where he sits a year, you get him in a system that he's comfortable with some really good talent around him, I think that this guy just has unbelievably good potential that people aren't really seeing like I am. I was like other people in that I didn't really like Kellen Mond, but I went back and I watched the 2020 tape, and this is a quarterback that has a huge linear progression with a massive jump in his gameplay this year. Him and Trevor Lawrence make more impressive throws than any other quarterback in the class, and I'm not really even sure it's close. Maybe you can group Zach Wilson in there, but Kellen Mond was basically asked to carry Texas A&M this season, and for a large part he did. I think that, you look at all the factors considered, the arm talent, the fact that he can run, the situation he was put in, how much he got better. I kind of see it. He is like the total package of a quarterback. Yeah, he is a little bit inconsistent, but I think that his inconsistencies are easily coached out compared to Trey Lance. I don't think Trey Lance is as raw as people think. That North Dakota State coaching staff is really good with quarterbacks, and they get these guys really far along the process. So I just don't think that Trey Lance has that incredibly high ceiling that a lot of other people think that he does. Whereas with Kellen Mond, I think that we've just seen the beginning of Kellen Mond's potential ceiling, and that his ceiling is really only rivaled by like Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields, these top guys.
So the only other point that I'll stick on, and then we can move, is I'm not willing to guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure Trey Lance will be a day 1 pick, probably even top 15 pick. While Kellen Mond, I'm not convinced is going to get drafted in the first round. He might get drafted in the second round, but I think when I'm looking at mock drafts, I'm reading about what NFL teams are doing, it does not seem like Kellen Mond's really, his stock isn't rising enough to get him into the first round. And I've said before how little I care about second round quarterbacks and on, just because of how often they bust and don't actually end up playing well. While if you're a top 15 NFL quarterback, you are actually going to, you have a much better chance of actually hitting. So draft capital is going to be a big decider on how I feel about Kellen Mond. If he's a day 1 pick, he's rising up my boards a lot. But if he's not drafted in the first round, I'm not drafting him. Someone else is going to pick him up before I feel comfortable taking him.
Yeah, one thing I will say really quickly about Kellen Mond and Justin Fields, like even though I have Kellen Mond above Justin Fields, it is razor thin. I think that, like JT said, the draft capital and landing spot can definitely change that. And the other thing too is that if you're like me, maybe if you're as ridiculously crazy as me, and you want to pick Kellen Mond, and maybe all of your league mates don't know that like mine do, I would try to play it a little bit smart, and I wouldn't be sitting there at 103 and say, fuck it, I'm taking Kellen Mond. Like, I could either trade down, I could just pick Justin Fields and then trade up into the second round probably and pick up Kellen Mond. So I'm not saying that you should be all batshit crazy and incredibly reach on Kellen Mond. I would take him higher than consensus, but I don't think you need to go batshit crazy. If you need quarterbacks, I just think he's right now the best value get in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, so when we're talking about that, I don't know the narrative of where Kellen Mond's going to get picked and what he's expected to do. But I have to assume that team's not going to bring him in expecting him to be the day one starter like we were talking about. And so with that regard, he's probably lower on people's radar because they don't, they figure they're going to have to wait with him. And then he's going to have to be either on their taxi squad or like at the end of their bench. And when we talk about players like that, a good example is Jordan Love. He was the, fourth quarterback taken off the board. And you could get him in the second round pretty easily in rookie drafts. So I feel like Kellen Mond, while Frank's much higher on him than most other people, like I feel like, even mid-second round, I think in most leagues you'd still be able to get him. We use the Reddit kind of the consensus thing, and he's just starting to creep up into the third round. I'm sure that's going to change when he actually gets drafted to an NFL team on what's probably a second day. So then I assume he's going to be around a second-round pick in rookie Superflex drafts. And so if he's your guy there, that's fine. Mid-second round pick, you don't have any problem with me drafting him around there. I just won't be the one to do it.
We all have Mac Jones at 5.
Yeah, he's so Kellen Mond was technically our 6th quarterback if we want to go in order. We had after Justin Fields at 3, we had Trey Lance at 4, Mac Jones at 5, Kellen Mond at 6. I just kind of wanted to skip over Jones for a second to kind of debate between Trey Lance and Kellen Mond. We all think Mac Jones is the 5th best quarterback. I think a lot of NFL scouts kind of agree with how they have the quarterbacks getting ranked. They have potentially 4 quarterbacks going off the board in the first 10 picks, which would be kind of surprising, but at the same time, not that surprising considering how many quarterbacks are aging and how many teams need a starting quarterback. A lot of people have Mac Jones around the middle of the first round, so I don't know. We're all kind of in agreement on Mac Jones. I don't know what direction you guys want to take it. Oh, it's something you like about him?
Yeah, let me ask you this. Which running backs would you take, if any, over Mac Jones?
Probably Javonte Williams and
Etienne.
But I don't think I'd take Najee Harris over Mac Jones.
Probably
yeah, I would definitely take Javonte Williams over Mac Jones. Man, Etienne and Najee Harris, for me, it's really
I think I would take both over Mac Jones here.
That's a tough one.
It's going to depend on the landing spot. Listen, do you think Mac Jones is going to have to sit a year? Do you think he's going to come in and just be expected to start? Is he going to, a team that's, middle of the road and he could really help him take the next step? Is he going to a team that's completely, and there's just a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about, Mac Jones here, and I don't know. I just think the Travis Etienne and Najee Harris, as well as obviously Javonte Williams, who we all have as our number 1 running back in this class, I would take all those 3 guys and probably at least the top 3 wide receivers as well. I mean, I think Mac Jones is probably going to fall to, pick 110 maybe of the rookie draft.
I think he's going to be around 11 or 12 because I think you also have to put Kyle Pitts in there that's probably locked to go before him.
Yep, so I think you're looking at, Mac Jones around pick 11 or 12 of, your rookie draft, and I think it's a good spot to take,
it's a guy really like good value pick there.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a really good value pick. Mac Jones is a guy that, we saw what Herbert was able to do coming and being, pretty much ADP around that 111 to 202 range in there, and I think Mac Jones is going to be right in there, a nice prime sweet spot for a contending team to pick up another quarterback, if we're going to be honest here.
I think that's where I draw it. Real quick, JT, I feel like if I'm a contender, I'm way more heavily interested in the running backs, because if I'm a contender, I want as many good running backs as possible.
I agree with you, Frank. And the contending teams always want the more running backs, just because their window is going to close if their running backs die out. But we just said it. We'd all take Javonte, we'd all take Travis Etienne, and we'd probably all take Najee over Mac Jones. So if at that point you're looking at running back 4, and I think it's probably time to take Mac Jones. And I think, if you have, an aging quarterback, if you're a contending team, if you have an Aaron Rodgers, or if you had Drew Brees, if you have Tom Brady, like it's time to replace that guy, and Mac Jones is going to fall right in your lap. I think it's a good scenario for a contending team.
Yeah, and you convinced me on that, Jake, because I'm lower on Najee Harris than most. But when I think about it, right, do I think Mac Jones is really going to be more valuable than Najee Harris? And I'm talking we kind of assume Najee Harris will be the day one starter, while that's definitely a question mark with Mac Jones. And I'm probably lower on Mac Jones than you guys are. I think he'll be an okay NFL starter. I don't see anything great. He's pretty good with his accuracy and stuff, and his decision making is not bad. But when we're talking about talent and whatnot, he's definitely not at par with the 4 guys I have ranked above him. So, I feel like he will be around what Tua currently is valued at. I think that's what Mac Jones will probably be around value-wise. Sorry, let me clarify that for you, Jake. So, Tua's taking a dip right now, right? Obviously, Tua's value has crashed. I think at Mac Jones's peak is what he's going to be with Tua. So if we have kind of a graph here, here's Tua's kind of trajectory, and then here's Mac Jones's kind of trajectory, where I'd much rather have Tua than Mac Jones, but I think at Mac Jones's peak, he'll be valued around what Tua's valued around right now. Does that make sense?
I'd much rather have Mac Jones than Tua, I think.
I still really I don't really like Tua, but I still like Tua much more as the prospect. Although
let Tua have a full year, not recovering from a major surgery in an NFL weight program and an NFL conditioning program. Get on the same page with his wide receivers.
You're acting like Alabama isn't.
Yeah, that's true. Alabama's NFL like. The one thing is the wide receivers for Alabama all said that they'd rather have Mac Jones as their quarterback, which it's kind of just more.
Well, they asked the guy. Okay, they asked the guys that were there.
Yeah.
They asked Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle who were there. What are you gonna diss the guy?
No,
you just played your.
It was weird to just kind of come out and say Mac Jones.
Okay, and I'm sure if you talk to Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, they'd obviously say Tua. It's just who was there, right? Okay, but they were Tua's number 1 and 2 receivers. So then you go and you ask Mac Jones 1 and 2 receivers. Obviously, they're going to say Mac Jones while Tua was there. Those guys were 3 and 4 on the depth chart. So I don't buy too much into that. They're not going to diss the guy that just. They're not going to Devonta Smith's not going to diss the guy that just gave him the Heisman on a silver platter. Without Mac Jones, he doesn't win the Heisman. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Tua's kind of at his bottom right now. I don't think Tua will increase an insane amount of value. I think he kind of is what he is. I just don't see that kind of same, gifts from Mac Jones. I think at his, I think it's tough for me to compare. As peak, he might be like Jared Goff. I'm not high on the guy, but he's my 5th quarterback off the board. So.
I don't know. Really quickly, I'm very nervous about Tua, mainly just because of this one theory which I have. And listen, you can shit on me all you want because it's just a theory, but I think that quarterbacks that are very timid, especially when they first enter the NFL and their throws, it's tough for them to have success. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just you look at Marcus Mariota, and Tua will have good games. He's a talented quarterback. I'm not saying that he sucks. It's just in terms of him progressing into one of these top quarterbacks in the league, I just think it's tough for a relatively gun-shy, timid quarterback to do that, which is what we kind of saw last year. But that's regardless.
Yeah,
let's move on to college.
I mean,
Go ahead,
just
Jake.
one last thing on Tua. It's hard to not be timid and try to, be protective of the ball when you have any quarterback looking over your shoulder. He knew that if he had a bad first half, that he likely was getting benched for, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think I understand it because, he didn't start the year as the starter, and then he replaced Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then, he was coming off an injury. So, like, it was a whole weird, and it was a COVID year. It was a whole weird scenario for Tua in his rookie year. But overall, I mean, I think not having Ryan Fitzpatrick, directly behind him, always the presence of will he come in the game, I think it'll help his confidence and help a little bit of what Frank's talking about. Because I agree, like, if he's going to play timid, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I think to wrap this up real quick, I didn't like the way that the Dolphins kind of handled him, where when Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing well, they all of a sudden decided to throw Tua in against the Rams of all teams. Like, it was just a weird way to go and handle. There's no better way to install confidence in your player than put them up against the Rams, rather than they had a bye week, I think, the following week, and then either the Jets or the Raiders. I think it was the Jets.
Literally the best defense in the league.
It's crazy move by the Dolphins. I just hope they're able to handle it better this year and really give the guys the support they need. And so far, I feel like they haven't done that much, with not really quieting the rumors that they could be trading for Deshaun when that was going on. Stuff like that. I don't know. Only time will tell what will happen. I'm still a believer as of now, though. So now I guess we'll just touch on Kyle Trask real quick, and then I guess we can move on or wrap it up. I'm sorry. Moose would probably beat us over the head for having Kyle Trask 7.
Guys, like, Florida's just, like, really good, so, like, I'll buy any guy that went to Florida. I don't care what position he plays.
Exactly.
We'll save Kyle Trask for when Lounis gets here.
I get, yeah. So we have Kyle Trask at 7, Jamie Newman at 8, tied with Davis Mills, actually, in our consensus at 8, 9, whatever way you want to put him, and then Ian Book at 10. Just from my perspective, I just don't think anyone other than Kyle Trask really could be an NFL starter. It was really hard for me to put 8, 9, 10 here. Frank's done more research into the quarterbacks than I have. I don't know. It's just, if I'm in a rookie draft and these guys are on the board, it's whatever. I might pick them up in the 4th round. But otherwise,
I think Davis Mills is the only other guy from Trask and obviously the top 6 that I think has a legit shot of being a relatively capable quarterback. I comped him to Andy Dalton. Davis Mills, he's a highly rated recruit. I'm pretty sure he's a guy that gets rid of the ball quickly but struggles to stretch the field. Jamie Newman, I think, is a jag. Ian Book, I think, is kind of like could be a good backup. I like what I saw at the Senior Bowl, but I think you guys are right in that. And historically speaking, even if you hit one of these bottom-of-the-barrel quarterbacks, unless you're getting the Tom Brady, it's pretty freaking rough. I'm pretty sure even undrafted quarterbacks have a higher chance than late-round quarterbacks at being relevant.
Yeah, I believe it. Again, anyone after the 1st round, I'm kind of out on. And these guys are like 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round.
Well after the 1st round.
so it's like, it is what it is. If you're a believer in these guys, you could probably get them off waivers during your actual during the actual NFL season. So whatever. If you want to stick one on your taxi, go ahead. But with that, I think that wraps up the episode 29, I believe that was for us. Episode 29.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll have more stuff to talk about next week. There's always news going around on the NFL. Follow us on Twitter. Frank threw out a tweet that was starting to pop off. We're throwing out daily polls now. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, comment below. I don't really know the YouTube stuff or podcast stuff. Rate and review us. That'd be nice, I guess, on podcast. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.